TPLF terrorist group massacred over 100 youth Sunday night in Kombolcha town. And Ethiopians are urged to stand in harmony and fight against terrorist groups. Greetings everyone and a very warm welcome to the news. With the news, I'm Shifarao Lako. Please stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced that non-Ethiopian forces have joined the terrorist TPLF group in the Wollo Front battle in the state of Amhara. The Prime Minister briefed senior government officials on current affairs. The Prime Minister also confirmed that non-Ethiopians and foreigners joined and made sacrifices with the terrorist group to destabilize Ethiopia. Elaborating on the war waged by the TPLF terrorist group and the way in which it is leading the war, the Prime Minister said the support of the people for the defense forces was commendable and that the government was not prepared to deal with the mobilization. The Premier further assured that various efforts are being implemented by the government to undertake the law enforcement and survival operation. Abiy further called upon the general public to stand in unison and support the army more than ever before. Now, TPLF terrorist group massacred over 100 youngsters Sunday night in Kombolcha town of the state of Amhara. The federal government warns TPLF sympathizers to keep their hands off the government. The remarks made by government communication services are reviewed by our staff reporter, Santayo Tamarat. Take a look.
Since October 4 last year, the very onset of the conflict in North Ethiopia, the TPLF has been massacring non-Tigrayan Ethiopians, particularly ethnic Amharas. The massacres at Maikadra, China, Tauldere, Kobo, Weldia, and Galikoma are some of these. And on Sunday night, after infiltrating into Kombolcha town of Amhara state, the TPLF once again massacred over 100 youths in the town, according to the Ethiopian government communication services.
In areas it infiltrated, the TPLF has made serious damage to properties. Pretending they are hunting for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, the Prosperity Party leaders and leaders of the Amhara state, they were looting factory machinery and other public and private properties the whole night. To the worst of their terror, they massacred over 100 youth of Kombolcha.
The minister also said the National Defense Force, together with the regional forces, is currently fighting against the TPLF junta in Dese and Kombolcha areas.
Our National Defense Force, together with other security systems, are fighting with gallantry against TPLF. It has swiftly curbed the mistakes caused as it was stopped from behind by traitors around Dese. Some TPLF messengers, like members of OLF and Sheni, tried to block a road yesterday in Oromia region around Borkona area. But this was deterred in minutes with coordinated efforts of the youth in the area and National Defense Force.
The government of Ethiopia asks the parties that support TPLF to stop their alliance since the group is sustaining its atrocities.
We would like to remind those TPLF sympathizers who are supporting TPLF in dismantling Ethiopia to stop from your misdoings. The government has commenced taking measures as of yesterday. Those who are celebrating as if TPLF has advanced should stop soon. Finally, 4 traitors, including here in Addis Ababa, who have prepared and are waiting to stop the army from behind, as your friends did in Dese, should know that the government has adequate information on this and has started operating against this.
The minister has also urged Ethiopians living in TPLF-occupied areas to continue their struggle against the junta until they are liberated from the terrorists with the backing of their fellow compatriots.
Now, careful observations show that most of the Western media institutions have opted to remain silent when it comes to the advancement of the National Defense Force in the fight against the terrorist TPLF. So the growing trends by these media outlets are covering up TPLF's heavy losses while magnifying what they call civilian deaths during their airstrikes around Mekelle. The story is presented as follows. The treacherous attacks of the TPLF forces against the North Command of the Ethiopian Defense Force, Western media outlets have shifted their attention to Ethiopia. Many agree that the trend of these media institutions is biased toward the TPLF, which the government has labeled a terrorist group. And this group has since then expanded the war into the Amhara and Afar regions, and for months now it's been carrying out widespread, brutal killings, looting and stealing from farmers, who themselves were eking out a very precarious living, already in the most difficult of difficult circumstances. This is a clear demonstration of the fact that Western media biased narrative supports armed rebels, undermines elected Ethiopian government, and forces the stereotype that Africa is destined for war and famine. The Ethiopian-American journalist at CBS told OBN that this has gone to the point where some of the Western media outlets can no longer be trusted.
I'm a Western trained journalist. I rely on some of these outlets for a lot of domestic issues or information on domestic issues. So when you come to realize over the course of time that you cannot rely on them to tell you the information in your country of birth, it's disappointing. You start to wonder, what else can I not rely on them for in terms of information? I think that as much as possible, Ethiopians have to try to talk to each other to get the information, not rely on external outlets to tell them their reality. Like, for example, when this whole war started, a lot of us of Tigrayan origin didn't understand what the whole genocide rhetoric was about. Like, we had lived with Ethiopians of all origins. I'd never been discriminated as far as I was aware because of being Tigrayan Ethiopian. My family's very mixed, like a lot of families, right? So I didn't understand where this all came from because my reality did not reflect that. Not to say that other people maybe didn't have that experience, but my reality didn't reflect that. A lot of the people around me, Tigrayans as well, said, where is this coming from?
Some Western powers are still coming up with the claims of urging both sides to stop the war, when it's absolutely clear that it is the TPLF expanding the war. Part of this game is their media outlets resorting to the dramatization of news rather than revealing realities on the ground.
Remember, the media focuses on drama. If it's not dramatic, in other words, they even try to dramatize something to make it. By doing that, they don't do education, or they don't do research, or they don't do something useful. They are not interested in that. They are interested in showing what is happening, like some strange thing that is happening. They dramatize it, they talk about it. So sometimes falsely. They don't even investigate who gave them that information. So in a war situation like this now, when you have two forces, one side, when they are defeated, they might even say, well, we've won. That's what they may say. You get me?
Yes.
So because of this, it's a very complicated. Now what I hear is in the Dessie area, what the TPLF is doing is, it's amazing what we hear, all the negative stories you hear. In the Afar area, and the Amhara area, and all these areas, you hear all these stories, but they never report them. What did they report? Only on what's happening, they think is happening in Tigray, humanitarian crisis and things like that.
The Air Force has conducted several airstrikes against TPLF armaments warehouses in order to put an end to TPLF's source of terrorism. The Western media outlets seem to care less about this reality, while shouting foul about civilian deaths. And this begs the question whether or not this is also part of their dramatization. The whole idea on the part of these media institutions is to give legitimacy to the desire by the US and other Western powers to install a weak and puppet state like the TPLF at all costs.
All this area, and it dates back like 1,000 years, so very historical place. A lot of things have happened here, definitely worth checking out. So this museum was built by the Indians?
It's built right here. It used to be the honeymoon palace of Emperor Selassie.
Ah, ooh, honeymoon.
Honeymoon suite.
So when you get married, they stay here and then we move southeast. Now it's a private museum.
You can't use it as a honeymoon suite anymore?
Are you going to have your honeymoon here, Salam?
Yes, I am, yeah. Are you joining me?
What, are you asking me to marry you?
Absolutely not.
Jesus.
Welcome back. You're still watching Addis News Hour. The advisor of Social Affairs Cluster to the Prime Minister, Deacon Daniel Kibret, and the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation CEO, Fesai Tagasu, tell ATV that the terrorist TPLF has been undertaking various efforts using its maximum potential to dismantle the nation. They also underscore that Ethiopians at every corner should stand in harmony to fight against this terrorist group. Kasaun Chane tells you more on that.
The people of Ethiopia are marking 1 year of the massacre the terrorist TPLF committed on the members of the National Defense Force of Ethiopia stationed in Mekelle, supported by treachery and treason organized by 10 court officers reaching the northern command of the Ethiopian National Defense Force, (NDF). Terrorist TPLF so-called special forces attacked the headquarters and divisions of the command on restive midnight of November 4, 2020, cold-bloodedly murdered officers who were not in action. Following this, the advisor of Social Affairs Cluster to the Prime Minister, Deacon Daniel Kibret, and Fesai Tagasu, Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation CEO, told ETV Amharic that the terrorist TPLF has been undertaking various efforts using its maximum potential to dismantle the nation.
This way of advancing of the TPLF is not a sign of strength, rather it is a sign of hopelessness, a seeming assortment of ways of misinformation in the public, and a calculation that to lead the ruling government to negotiate with them. To fight this group as a national defense force does mean one's own nation and public. Cognizant of this fact, the general public ought to stand in unison to support the defense army and to defeat this renegade force.
Advisor of Social Affairs Cluster to the Prime Minister, Deacon Daniel Kibret, also counted on his part that Ethiopians in unison should understand the fact on the ground what the TPLF group has been doing and struggle to fight them up to their grave.
Having all persons of age from children to the elderly and organizing them to destroy, to loot, to kill and to accomplish whatever they wish. You are watching the war on Facebook and YouTube of this force being taught cruelty. How can you stay at home and fight them? Here, how much is the extent that we decided to fight this group? Firstly, the community residing around the war areas, in whatsoever their context, must struggle to their survival, and secondly, security forces in unison without any kind of difference should strive to eliminate this terrorist group ever on land in a way that is unpredicted and in an artistic manner of defeating.
Terrorist TPLF conducted the most unprecedented crimes against humanity and violations of human rights to dismember Ethiopia. It was underscored.
Now, moving on, the coronavirus pandemic has been negatively affecting the leather and leather industries in Africa. The 5th International Leather and Leather Products Conference kicked off in Ethiopia yesterday. Habtam Ashagre reports.
Over hundreds of participants from 19 countries have come together to discuss the major challenges and solutions to leather and leather products conference in Addis Ababa. Speaking on the occasion, Gabriel Gebremehedin, who is acting executive director of Africa Leather and Leather Products Institute, said the conference is instrumental for new network as well as broader cooperation between African countries to develop the leather industry.
The leather sector is facing a lot of challenges due to the pandemic, similar to the problems faced by other sectors of the global economy, and have also sector-specific challenges. The conducting of this Congress in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, will contribute to the opening up of new networks, broader cooperation, and more integration of the leather sector in general and Africa in particular.
Talking to TV, Makonnen Haile-Mariam, who is advisor of Africa Leather and Leather Products Institute for his part, said the conference is important to promote the vast leather industry to the rest of the world.
The 5th International Leather and Leather Products Conference is the first of its kind in Africa. It is also important to absorb good practices and to bring directions to solve challenges from other countries. This conference will bring good opportunities for Ethiopia, promoting untapped leather industries to the rest of the world.
The 2020 data is showing the number of gains in leather industry has declined by over 4.1 billion due to COVID-19 pandemic.
ከ2020 ላይ ያለውን ዳታ ስንወስድ ግን በኮቪድ እና በተለያዩ ነገሮች ምክንያት
When we take the 2020 data, the COVID-19 pandemic is negatively affecting the leather industry. Thus, the number of leather gains have declined by 4.1 billion. Particularly when we see the shoe sector or shoe types make share affected by COVID-19. Specifically, waterproof shoe products are seriously damaged by the pandemic.
Information obtained from Africa Leather and Leather Products Institute is showing that African countries need to take appropriate measures to stimulate the leather industry in the continent.
The Industrial Parks Development Corporation says it is undertaking activities to increase investment flow of domestic businesses in various industrial parks. To realize industrialization, Ethiopia is developing 24 industrial parks across the country. Information obtained from Industrial Parks Development Corporation is showing 116 anchor companies are doing businesses under 13 industrial parks administered by the federal government. The corporation is undertaking activities to fix problems with the Development Bank of Ethiopia to prepare 80% of loan for domestic businesses to engage in manufacturing sector. The U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia, Gita Passy, visited Hawassa and met with business leaders, workers, academics, and journalists to talk about U.S. government programs. The ambassador visited the Hawassa Industrial Park, the first sustainable textile and apparel industrial park in Africa. The workers told the ambassador the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, and other support from the United States had positively impacted their lives. Ambassador Passy underscored that the United States and Ethiopia have a shared goal to ensure that the people of Ethiopia continue to benefit from AGOA. The United States stands ready to work with the government to this end. The ambassador had the opportunity to hear from young Ethiopians working to bring about peace and prosperity in their country.
Welcome to Blantyre, Malawi's second biggest city. with an estimated population of 1 million inhabitants.
Now, moving on, a UN official discussed mediation options and possible way forward for Sudan with its ousted prime minister on Sunday, a day after hundreds of thousands of protesters took to the streets to demand an end to military rule. Daniel Kassan has more on that.
The outgoing of dissident posed the biggest challenge to General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan since he toppled Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok's cabinet last Monday and arrested key politicians. The streets were largely calm on Sunday. Late on Sunday, judicial sources confirmed the release of Ibrahim Gandour, head of the disbanded former ruling party, and other former Islamist officials. Mediation efforts by the international community and within Sudan had been announced before Saturday's protests with no outcomes reported. The main compromise under discussion, say politicians who have presented it, is a proposal for Hamdok to be given full executive powers and appoint a cabinet of technocrats. The proposal, which the sources say has been presented to all sides, would do away with the 40-member power-sharing Sovereign Council in favor of a 3-person honorary council. Political parties, rebel groups, and the military partners in the pre-coup government would be represented in parliament, and the military would continue to lead the Security and Defense Council, they said. Hamdok has demanded the release of detainees and a return to the pre-coup power-sharing arrangement before negotiating further. Sources close to him said last week life returned to a near standstill in the capital Khartoum on Sunday. Residents said strikes and security measures were causing paralysis. Banks and most markets were closed, with only a few small stores and stalls open. People were unable to cross into Khartoum from Omdurman and the capital southern twin city, Khartoum North, because security forces had closed the Nile River bridge. Demands range from handover of power to civilians in full to criminal charges against school leaders. Lawyers told Reuters that they petitioned to get access to detained officials and politicians. Judiciary sources confirmed the release of Bashir's former foreign ministers. All of them had been detained under orders of a task force aiming to dismantle and prevent the return of the Bashir government, which the military has been critical of.
Panelists at this year's Nigeria Economic Summit have called on the authority in the country to focus on critical sectors of the economic, stressing that the private sector should be given a chance to operate and influence government policies. Africa News reported the two-day summit held in the capital, Abuja, had in attendance national and global leaders to assess the country's state of economy and identify vital imperatives. Goshumaliso has more.
at the subnational level.
The Nigeria Economic Summit held in Abuja underscored the need to exploit the role of the private and public sector together in creating wealth, in providing prosperity, and in causing development. Co-founder of SAL Consulting Agriculture and Nutrition, Nindi Noeli, said the government should leverage on technology and create environment for private sector in the country to thrive. The private sector should be given the opportunity to influence government policies. Minister of Aviation Hadi Serki in a remark said the role of the private sector cannot be overemphasized, adding that the sector has done very well over the years, but the need to work together with the public sector to recreate a better Nigeria.
I think we need to begin to understand the role of public sector and that of the private sector together in creating wealth, in providing prosperity, in causing development, and in getting the country to go to greater heights.
He also noted that the private sector has done very well, adding that the sector should position actively together with the public sector in order to recreate a better Nigeria. Speaking on agriculture, Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed reiterated that the country has made tremendous effort in agriculture, but added that more needs to be done in the sector. If the sector improved, can create more jobs for Nigerian unemployed users.
OECD countries, they spend about $12,000 on average per pupil for their primary education system. And South Africa spent about $2,000. Brazil, Mexico spent about $2,400. So from there it was extrapolated that you need a certain critical minimum to spend in order to run a good educational system.
The summit provided a veritable platform for effective partnership and cooperation between the public and private sectors for the purpose of charting the course for a stable and productive economy.
And now a quick reminder of the top stories before we go. TPLF terrorist group massacred over 100 youngsters Sunday night in Kombolcha town. And Ethiopians urged to stand in harmony and fight against terrorist groups. That's all the news there is for now. Many thanks for watching us. Bye-bye.